or maybe some positive developments that have come, because I do want to end on a more optimistic note, and I do feel like there is, even though we're not doing nearly enough, Hindus definitely not taking it as seriously. Is there any improvement on us being more proactive than we were maybe a couple of years ago? Is there a little bit more unity than that? Can you maybe give some examples of that you've encountered?
So there's been talk about a rise of anti-Hindu sentiment, but if you go back through history, you can see that this is a constant. So there's escalating cycles and spirals of communal violence that have been going on for centuries. So people talk about there's a rise of anti-Hindu sentiment. Well, actually, it's more like that it's coming out into the public domain and we can now see it.
Mm-hmm.
So it hasn't been reported in the past, not because it hasn't been happening, but because there's been barriers to reporting. And one of those was that people don't know the law and they don't know how to take up their rights within, and whether it's human rights, civil liberties. And now they're starting to catch on and realize that there is a system there to protect them, but they need to use the system. So they need to document everything meticulously. There needs to be members of every community that their sole responsibility basically is to document the communal condition that they're in, and to document incidents that are happening in their region, to document incidents that are happening in their nation, so that they can then show this is the scenario that's occurring within our country, and take this to the intelligence, take this to your local police, your federal police, your state police, take this to your community safety officers in your locality, and then start having this conversation about how to protect our communities, because they can then go into your temples, they can go into your community spaces, and they can teach people things like how to protect yourself within the bounds of the law, which is different in every country, in every state. So they need to be very localized about building this relationship. Are they being more proactive? We're hearing a lot of talking about things on the net, which is great. We're hearing a lot about awareness raising. We're seeing incidents happening, quite confronting incidents happening. And the awareness is being raised at a higher level. So there may be diplomatic statements that are coming out, for example, on the Bangladesh pogrom. We had some statements coming out. There were diplomatic statements, and this is related, but it's not a Hindu, on the Salman Rushdie issue. But then you see the complete oppositional narrative coming out with the Nupur Sharma incident, which is a Hindu issue. So there's still a lot of injustice and inequity of how the media treat different situations, and they have been quick to blame Hindus. So the media, do I think that things are improving? I think people need to understand what anti-Hindu sentiment and Hinduphobia actually mean historically. And there's resistance to recognising that this word's been around for 200 years, 150 years for Hinduphobia and 200 years for anti-Hindu sentiment, anti-Hindu feeling, these kind of words, anti-Hindu legislation, anti-Hindu XYZ, anti-Hindu books. Catherine Mayo's book was branded anti-Hindu, and the Hindu Mahasabha went around to foreign countries to try and clarify with the media and with the communities that this is not actually what Hinduism is, and we're insulted and hurt by this. This is highly offensive, but it didn't stop people from using Catherine Mayo's work. So do I think things are improving? I think we have a legacy of injustices. And I do see that bringing the issue to the United Nations from India was absolutely fantastic. And we do need to look at other forms of religiophobia that are non-Abrahamic, and all of them, and include all of those, as our prerogative and as our agenda. But I do think we need to start funding institutions, think tanks, researchers, and to work within their discipline, not outside of it, because we see a lot of hogwash coming out about what these things mean, and people love that. They click on it. It's like, you have any incident and it's been reported in a very polarized way, and that suits a lot of people's appetites, because they want to feel like, we want to get back at these people a little bit. We feel hurt. We want a bit of to assert ourselves back into the discourse. But if you don't put the facts down because nobody's collecting them, and you don't know if you're not reporting them in this sort of factual way, then human rights observers can't do anything with it. So if you stick on terms like this is love jihad instead of sex trafficking, a human rights organisation is going to read that and they're not going to know. They're just going to read all of the other propaganda that says that love jihad is a conspiracy theory. But we know it's happening. Forced conversions and abductions are happening all around South Asia. But for some reason, whenever they cross the border into India, everything becomes a big conspiracy and an Islamophobic conspiracy. We need to use the correct terminology and start on Twitter being very careful about how we word our tweets, because our outrage should be directed at something which is an offence. Mm-hmm. So our outrage should be directed at child sexual exploitation, child sexual abuse, sex trafficking, forced conversions, things that are abductions, that are a deprivation of a person's liberty. How can she make a choice to be with a person or conduct certain activities when already her liberty is being deprived? Right. So when people, start commenting on a domestic violence incident where a partner has murdered in an Islamic kind of style, so they've had their heads chopped, murdered their partner in that particular way, then they slap on it love jihad. But there's so much more to that is actually recognisable to the Western authorities. They say, you don't listen to us. That's because there's language barriers. So use the correct terminology and put the facts and nothing more than the facts.
Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content, and to support our work, please visit citti.net. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.